Do you ever wonder what it really means to be human? That beyond the routines, the masks, and the daily hustle, there's a raw, messy, and beautiful reality unfolding right before our eyes. I'm Rick Watson, and this is Humaning, a podcast where I have honest conversations with everyday humans, and together we peel back the layers, dive into the chaos, and celebrate the magic of just being human. As you listen, notice how different parts of your story may appear in the story of others as we all just do our best to live, to feel, and to connect. Welcome to Humaning. John Williams, welcome to the podcast again.
Rick Watson, we know each other's surnames
A bit closer. Yeah. I think, we were episode 4, I think.
When was that?
It was about 6 months ago.
Is it that long?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Yeah. We're in a new location,
We are in a new location.
and the new location has caused some small headaches.
Yeah, we've just been doing a bit of tech MacGyver.
So Joe and I and Finn moved house yesterday. Monday, so 2 days ago. And got the base level internet connected and thought it would be okay until the NBN's connected in a week. And today's efforts have proved otherwise.
Yeah, I don't think the weather has helped. That storm might have soaked some underground, soaked some underground infrastructure. Yeah. No, it's pretty flaky, but I think we're in business.
Yes, we are. We've MacGyvered this shit, haven't we? Or you have. Let's do a little check-in
Let's do it.
as we sit here right now. How are you? What's happening in your physical, mental, emotional worlds?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because as soon as we pressed record and as soon as we started interacting
Live.
yeah, heart rate up. Like, we've been hanging out for about an hour and a half, I guess, just catching up and messing with tech. And as soon as we press record and as soon as I know that this is going out into the world, there's a little body reaction there, which is interesting. And I'm sure that'll pass. Mentally, just relaxed. It's been a nice little buffer. The drive down here was pretty intense. Big storm. Big storm on the highway. Very glad I didn't ride the bike. That would have been pretty miserable and unsafe. Actually, I would have just had to stop. It was terrible. Just kind of a nice buffer from that. And first thing this morning when I woke up, I'm just in the habit of kind of checking in on what's happened overnight in the business, and so now I've kind of got some distance from that, which is nice. I mean, that's a choice, but it's nice to be in a headspace. And emotionally, life's good. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the stuff I've been up to, but just kind of very full at the moment, but full by choice and full of things I'm choosing. So
I like that.
Yeah.
It's making me smile.
Yeah. How about you?
It feels like we've been packing up our old house for the last 3 months. We haven't. We kind of have, but so physically the body is smashed. I feel like I've hiked for 3 days. You know, that ache in your feet.
Yeah.
The old titanium hips give me a bit of love.
Right.
Lower backs give me a bit of love.
Yep.
The body's feeling the up and down stairs, moving furniture and getting everything organised side of life at the moment. And there's another part of me that's like, fuck yeah. Like, I love being functional. I love being able to do shit because there's been times when I haven't. So there's a little kind of, maybe like a bit of teenage part of me that's like, I just like being able to move shit and lift shit and fix shit. And
Yep.
So it's been really satisfying on that front. But now we both got out of bed this morning. We're just like, holy shit, we're old. So that's the physical. Mental, just feeling literally stoked to be in this house. Like, It's a completely different energy and one that we're really excited to be in. So mentally, we're walking on top of the water, you know. It's taken a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a process.
Yeah, and both of us in different ways. But for me personally, just, you know, my old house that was bought through the buyback here in New South Wales only settled last week. So even just that chapter, that's been 3 years, into Feb. So it's just, I'm noticing the relief of closing some chapters, and noticing the lack of like low key anxiety and concern that I had when they were open, you know?
Yeah. And they become that sort of stuff. It sort of becomes part of the background smell and you stop noticing it until it's gone.
Yeah, definitely. So I think part of life this year is trying to pay more attention to what's there and what I'm grateful for, but also what's not there.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good example of what's not there. Is just that low-key unease, like not solid foundation, a little bit of housing uncertainty, financial, not knowing what's going, like that stuff that we all have different responses to.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that that's quietened down. So mentally feeling stoked about that shit.
Yeah, I bet.
You know?
I bet. I can tell.
And it's like, I'm happy to ride the white water, but I'm also happy to get off the river sometimes.
Yeah.
And emotionally, just peaceful.
Nice.
Yeah. I got the dog snoring.
I know. I was just going to comment. That's not Rick and I heavy breathing. That's the dog snoring at our feet. Good on you, Rocky.
Yeah, there's a big thunderstorm. He's had a rough morning, so any little yips and stuff, he's always pops up on the podcast.
Yeah, good.
By that. So yeah, overall, just stoked to be in this new space and stoked to have you back. I think we were talking over coffee and just kind of thinking about the idea around having some people back on, because the first podcast is kind of around like, who are you? How are you? How do you know yourself? What are the patterns? What are the good? What are the bad? What do you learn? Like that's that real sort of, you know, as much as you can get out in an hour and a half. And I think inviting guests back on, what I wanted was more of an exploration of like, what does life look like now? Where once you've learned a little about yourself, what happens next? Like what do you do with that shit? And I think that's super interesting because sometimes we can be in a stressed place and be like, I've got to sort this shit out. But if we can get to that equilibrium, or, you know, our footing is on solid ground, like then what? And I find this super interesting because a lot of guys contact me with Circle and they're like, I feel like Circle's when you're broken. And there has to be something wrong to come to Circle or therapy or whatever. But I'm noticing the change in the growth that can happen from a solid foundation of not being in that stressed state or that desired state. And so what I'm getting at with all this story is the repeat guest, having you back on, is like, it's continuing the chapter of like, what's next? Where are you heading? What have you learned? And how is that going to change what rolls out moving forward?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have a plan, but that's the rough kind of direction.
Yeah, nice. Can I pick up on something you said there about this idea of you go to Circle because something's broken, and I think this is also reflected in often how we think about, you know, things like therapy or whatever, right? And I get the sense, and I'm interested to hear what you say, like, it's also nice to have a space and where you can actually celebrate what's going right.
100%.
And those spaces, I think, for a lot of us are pretty rare.
Yeah.
You know, where yeah, you can say, you know, this bit and this bit and this bit of my life, I'm just smashing it. I'm enjoying it. Blah blah blah.
It's not that accepted, is it?
It's not.
No.
It's not. Which is a shame. And I think you and I have talked about this before. It is difficult in a space like, I haven't been to your circle, but you know, I imagine it's challenging for people. You know, you go around the circle and there's a check-in and people are throwing all sorts of heavy shit out that they're dealing with, and then it comes to you and it's like, my life's great. I'm doing this. Like culturally, that's hard.
I'm glad you brought it up, because we have a code. One of the pieces in that code is, it is essential that you speak to your wins and celebrate your wins, regardless of what's going on in the room.
Yeah.
Because what we found in the early days, men felt bad when there was other people were sharing and they had some heavy stuff, and then they did what you just said of like, dude, I'm fucking killing it. This is going great. This has worked out. You know, there's little wins here and there. They'd hold those back because they didn't want to, you know, impact the guys that were in their stuff. And we're like, no. Not only is that important, we're going to write that shit into our code.
Nice.
But I think that's just I'd like that to be a part of life anyway. It's like, and that's what I think this second round of having people back on, it's like, what are we celebrating? Like, where's the adventure? Where's the joy? What's going great? You know?
Yeah.
And hopefully, if there's a message that gets filtered through on this, it's like, celebrate your fucking wins.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we spoke, we were kind of 3/4 of the way through our first year of study.
We were.
Yeah.
We both passed, I believe.
We both passed?
I passed. I scraped in a little late. I was a bit late on my therapy hours, but I got the waiver through. Not the waiver. I did it. I just did it late. So yep. Year 2. I know you signed up, I think, the day that you got the offer. I've still got it. It's still on my to-do list, but I'm going back.
Cool.
Yep.
How was the rest of the year and the whole year as a complete, like, what was that experience like for you?
My plan or my intention about not making any decisions about whether to continue, for example, worked beautifully.
Yeah.
You know, I very deliberately and quite comfortably just sat in that
what it was.
Uncertainty, right? And I had, as you mentioned, we did the residential of 5 days. That was November sometime.
Yep.
That was a really interesting experience. I had a couple of pivotal conversations there with some of our, year level seniors, because, sort of professionally and vocationally, I'm in a very different place than I was when I signed up for GTB. I mean, I signed up for GTB with the genuine possibility that a career in therapy was something that I might want to do. And, and I mentioned this on the last podcast, 3 months later, I kind of walked into and then chose to leap into a business opportunity, a professional opportunity that's, going to keep me very busy for the next couple of years. And so part of me was thinking, does it make sense? Like, how likely am I to ever pursue this professionally? And the other thing that was on my mind was, there was such a personal development, personal growth focus in the first year.
Yeah.
I think whenever we talked about the application of stuff in therapy, it was a tangent rather than,
Yeah.
And so there was a part of me thinking, oh, well, maybe I've sort of got the bit that I need from the program. And I had a very interesting conversation. So we did these, what are they called? CTO, client therapist observer sessions at the residential. So there's a higher year level student being the therapist. We were the cannon fodder, the clients, the first years, and then observers from staff and various year levels. So I had a really, really interesting session with a fellow there. He was a fourth year. He was just about to finish. And we got chatting on the
And were you the client?
I was the client.
Yep.
Yeah, I was the client. And we got chatting on the way, after that session. And I asked him about this. I was like, I basically told him what I just told you. And he said, look, I actually found that the personal development stepped up in second year once you started doing CTO as a therapist.
Yeah.
Because your personal stuff, your personal triggers, your personal aversions, a client is talking about something that, reminds you of you.
Yeah.
All of that stuff is coming up live. And so, and there's various things you've got to do and can do, but all of that stuff is coming up live. And so he said, if anything, that sort of self-awareness, but also that self-regulation around when you do get a trigger like that, steps up a notch. So I was like, oh, that's interesting.
It's where the rubber meets the road.
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? So that was a really interesting kind of thing. And the other insight that
Can I stop you there,
please,
before we go to the next one? What pulls you? What interests you about that side of it?
Because,
like, why is that exciting?
Why is that exciting to me? Because I saw what I got in personal development and how that's impacted my life and how I am in my life.
Yeah.
And it's much better being me now than it was being me a year ago, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 years ago, or 6, or 10.
So it's more about what's happening on the back end. What's happening on the front end that you can see on the daily basis, and the impact that work has had on how your day to day goes.
Yeah, how my relationships unfold with my kids, romantic relationships, my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
And how I deal with things that.
And I find this really interesting because I know the context of this, and I just want to paint the picture a little bit. Like you're a tech guy, aren't you?
Yes.
So technical engineering.
Yeah, electronics, computer systems. Yeah.
And you're working as a founder in a startup.
Yeah.
In a tech company around AI and a few things like that. Yeah. About as far as you can get from relational dialogue and connection. And so this is what interests me, is like you're in one world over there, and then with the Gestalt stuff, you're in another world of like building your skills in being relational. Mm-hmm. And how you show up in relation.
Yep.
How have those two worlds intersected or overlapped?
So, okay, one really simple example. I mean, the world is still relational. It doesn't matter what you're relating about. So I might be talking with my co-founders about anything, product decisions, discussions with investors, whatever, anything. We're in constant dialogue, and the better I can relate, the smoother that goes. For starters. Now that's not. I don't want to put that as like an instrumental purpose. It's not like I'm going to do therapy so that I can be a more effective operator in business. It's not it at all. But the benefit there is really clear. So, awareness of, we were talking about this before, sometimes there are things that I've got a pretty strong belief in the right way to do things.
Yeah.
And, obviously I believe that opinion is grounded in some kind of experience or truth or whatever, but, might not be. Could be blind to that too. I think that having a more explicit awareness and acceptance of that about myself puts me in a position to own it.
Yep.
And when it rubs up against something, another person, I can put it out there.
Yeah.
And
You
so
don't have to defend it vigorously.
I don't have to defend it. I put it out there. So I literally had this conversation with one of my partners yesterday. It's like, you know, I'm pretty selective about the hills I choose to die on, and I think this might be one of them.
Yep.
Right? And that then precipitated a really clear, honest, transparent conversation about this particular thing, which is, you know, it's actually a minor kind of detail, really. But for some reason, it just kind of, it's like, oh, no, I really feel we have to do this the right way. And I don't think what we're doing is the right way at the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are effective and catastrophic ways of having those kind of conversations. So there's a really kind of pragmatic.
Yeah. I'm interested in what's John 5 years ago. How would the conversation be different to what you had yesterday?
Yeah, I might have got a bit frustrated that the other person in the conversation couldn't see how obviously correct I was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How else might I have handled it? I might have been less able to step back from that point of difference and get some perspective that actually it really doesn't matter that much
perspective
anyway.
Part of it,
So that would, but that's about kind of noticing. It's like, oh, I'm really digging in on this. What's going on there? Why am I digging in on this? So reflect on this particular thing. Why does this feel so important to me? And I was able to clarify for myself what that was, offline.
Yeah.
And then this is important to me. How do I communicate that importance and initiate a productive conversation? So I might have been less patient and less kind of reflective previously.
And that you're probably more capable to have uncomfortable conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's huge.
Absolutely. And that's we always end up waving the Gestalt flag here. I love it. That's dialogical relating.
Yeah.
Right? It's paying genuine attention to the perspectives of other people and using I statements like, I feel this is really important, rather than, you're missing the point. Yeah. You don't understand, that kind of stuff. So it's all of that. I mean, and that's what I mean. That this we live in a relational world, and we're relating with all sorts of people about all sorts of things all the time.
Yeah.
And the better I can do that, these little interactions, instead of becoming, I'm really not looking forward to this conversation because I think it's going to be difficult, come out of it instead going, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah.
We understood each other's perspective. We came up with a plan. Everyone's happy. Let's go.
This is funny. There's two things I want to share. One is last night, there was a situation that occurred and just a text exchange. And I noticed that me a couple of years ago would have been heavily apologetic and people pleasing. And instead I was just really matter of fact. Like, yep, that's fine. And the truth of the matter is this and this, and the expectation shouldn't really change because of these things. For me to text that to someone 2 or 3 years ago would have been my worst nightmare. Mm-hmm. And I read back and I'm like, look at you go.
Yep.
You freaky little boundary boy. Like,
yep.
I'm like, that's progress.
Yeah.
That's a signpost.
Yeah.
Yep. And the other thing that popped up while you were talking was we've been doing induction calls with our new crew down in Melbourne, and we were speaking to someone this week. And the reason that they originally came to our group was to work out how to help build their business. They've got a small business that they operate. I think they're in the finance or brokering kind of industries. And then after they did our first session, she realised that getting to know herself, getting to know her mental and emotional patterns is the best business growth that she can actually do. I'm just like, hell yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, I literally used to be a business coach in the fitness industry, and the people that I coach now get more business success than when I was a business coach. I don't know whether what that says about me, or whether it's just the focus on the puppeteering of the mental emotional world and how that impacts all your life.
The way that you are in the world, the way that you are in relationship.
Yeah. Either that or I was just a really shit business coach, which could be possible.
I doubt that.
No, but I just think it's super interesting around that, you know, what is the knock-on effect of getting to know myself with the awareness, the acceptance, and like that's a wicked arsenal to have in your toolkit.
Yeah.
Because you can go into those conversations and be like, yeah, I'll own the bit where this is me, like really wanting this to be done a certain way. I'm happy to own that. And this is why.
Yeah.
Rather than having to like vigorously defend it, you know?
Right. And so, you know, consider like tough conversations with a partner, right? If you know your triggers and you can feel it because you're thinking about the conversation and you get that body response, right? If you can catch that and you've got that awareness of the kind of things that can set you off, you can go into that conversation and say, look, this is really triggering to me because X.
Yeah.
You know, you can put it out there.
Yeah.
And that's also, that requires a certain self-confidence to be vulnerable and to put your weaknesses on the table.
Yeah.
And trust that the person you're interacting with is not going to exploit that.
Yeah.
And so then that comes to, you know, choices of who we spend time with.
Yeah.
Which is also important. But yeah, I think that can kind of, yeah, I mean, it just works.
And I think that the accumulation of evidence is the greatest tool. It's not a tool. What I'm trying to say is like when we stop and notice, didn't die, got my point across, everything was okay, like that.
Didn't get laughed at, didn't get ridiculed. The
dispelling of the story, if we can notice that the story's not true and we can do our thing and, you know, then I think it's put a fucking post in the ground and go, okay, noted.
Right.
You know?
It's not a tool. It's almost like a platform. You're kind of building up, you're building a foundation, right? You're kind of building up that base. And it does get reinforced every time it works.
Yeah.
And perhaps also it's more robust. I think you become more robust to the times when it doesn't work. Don't know about that, but it seems reasonable.
Yeah, because there will be dialogue with certain people where, you know, it is what it is.
Right. So I'm in a very fortunate position where, I mean, apart from my children, who I still actively choose to engage with because I really like them as people, and, you know, every relationship that I have in my life is one of choice. I've chosen my partner, I've chosen my friends, I've chosen my colleagues.
Yep.
And where was I going with that? That is a fortunate position. You know, I'm not in. Actually, that's not true. I still have.
Yeah, I'm about to challenge you on that.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's okay. I mean, I do still. Yeah, I guess where I was going with that is that I'm not having frequent or even infrequent, you know, interactions with really difficult people. So I'm not getting tested on the knockdown of the platform.
Yeah. And like the bit I was going to challenge you on is that those people that you have in your life have all been conscious choices.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that you have in your life now are all conscious choices of like, yes, you are a person that I want to connect with. I feel like all the tick boxes.
Yep.
So it's not by accident that that's your environment.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And it's also like part of that environment is shaped by our experience when it wasn't great, when it wasn't connected, when it wasn't, because I know if I'm speaking for me now, the circumstances of being in environments and not being connected with the other person and having resentments and all the stuff that comes with that.
Yep.
I look back now and that's probably been my greatest educator, my greatest, how am I going in there? Like, how am I showing up in this? How am I contributing to this?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I have such a big pull towards connection now because previously I felt so disconnected and I had a role in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I, we were talking before, sort of personal, intimate relationship history is a very, it's a rich mine of reflection for me. I've been
Well said.
I've been divorced for just over 7 years, and I've had a couple of reasonably substantial relationships since then.
Yeah.
And yeah, I often reflect on what I brought to the things that the frictions in those and the circumstances and decisions that led to the end of those relationships. So it's a pretty rich mine.
Yeah. But there's also, even with that, I just keep seeing the willingness to look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Step one.
Yeah.
Awareness.
Yep.
Are you willing to look?
Yep. Are you willing to look?
Yeah.
So to close the loop on this interesting little spiral, I'm still not convinced that practicing as a therapist is in my future, but it doesn't have to be for me to come back for more.
Yeah. To keep building on this relational muscle.
Keep building on it.
Yeah.
Right. The other insight I had was that I'm doing GTB 1 year at a time.
Yeah.
So I can do year 2, and then if the business is getting really busy and I'm struggling to do both,
pause that.
I can pause it. So it's not this all or nothing kind of thinking. And it was a shift away from that all or nothing thinking that got me to take the first step.
Yeah.
I mean, this was my thing. I said last time about, what is it? If the view doesn't change if you stay in the same place, right? So if I'd viewed that as I am committing to 4 years and I must do this,
check the view in 4 years,
this money, but it's not how it works. Yeah. It's just take the step, breaking it into bits, and if I stop after year 2, that's time and money and energy well spent. If I go all the way through, so it's kind of loosening the grip a little bit on the outcome.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm just thinking, like, one of the things I admire about you is your ability to be really proactive in shaping your life around the things that bring you joy, and that you don't accept the default. You create what you shape your life.
I am shaping my life these days.
Yeah.
Hasn't always been the case.
Yeah. So we've known each other for probably a year now.
Yeah, let's call it a year.
Yeah. And so the version of John that I know is, the guy that decided to learn to ride a motorbike
at 50.
At 50, get his license, buy a bike. And even just that is just this, like, it's that question of, like, what brings me joy?
Mm-hmm.
Brings me joy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see you, like, going out and chasing that, and this Christmas you've been over New Zealand for 10 days doing a bike touring around New Zealand, and like it's the theme of like what's after the professional development, like how do we use this new version of us and what do we do with it? I see you doing something with it.
I am. I should sort of bracket this by saying that, a year ago, 2 years ago, I had all of the same opportunity and all of the same resources available to me as I have today. And I wasn't doing any of this stuff. So what does that mean? What's different? Right? And I attribute a lot of that to, personal development in the last year and, getting over stuckness and getting over that that fixation on the result rather than the process sort of vibe. Because, I could have done all of this 5 years ago. Okay, logistically something is a little bit different. The kids are older. They don't, so that's a lot more flexible. But it's, but otherwise. Look, I got the motorbike license because I just remembered that it was something that I'd once wanted to do and then forgotten about.
Yeah.
And that was enough. Yeah. I do like learning stuff. I like having skills. I like sort of being competent at stuff and being able to do stuff. That brings me a lot of satisfaction. So, and I actually really like structured learning. I loved, I've done a barista course and I've done, scuba diving and learn how to ride a motorbike. Like I actually really enjoy being trained in interesting things. Yeah, and the acquisition of skills and the refinement of skills.
What do you get from that?
Better coffee at home.
Yeah. better road trips.
The ability to, so I did a refresher dive just before Christmas because you're supposed to dive every 12 months just to keep your currency. And I wasn't, and what's that? That's something fun that I can do if I'm on holidays or traveling in a part of the world where the diving's good. Yeah. So it's not like I'm out diving every weekend or I'm out riding every weekend, but it's just sort of a, right? So I just did the motorbike thing because it was something I'd always wanted to do, and I had forgotten about it. And look, when you're married, mortgage, young kids, riding is a risky endeavor. You can manage that risk to a certain extent. The way that you ride has a big impact, I believe, on your safety, but there's still the random. Yeah. So you've got to accept that. So there's other reasons that might have cooled that. So I go on.
No, I'm interested in like giving yourself permission to have time to do these things rather than be committing more time to work, or how that aspect of it has changed.
Well, that's what I was saying though, is that, I've been functionally underemployed is the term. I've been functionally underemployed I had been for a couple of years.
Yep.
I had the time, but I was burning it. Yep. I was working part-time by choice, and I had all the time in the world to do anything.
Yep.
And I would spend entire afternoons lying on my bed scrolling Reddit. So yeah, nice one. Right? So
yeah.
So, I don't know if I was actively giving myself permission to do that or I was just avoiding something else, possibly. But yes, now I do actively sort of choose and I don't feel okay, here's an example. I went into this business partnership with a clear statement to my co-founders that I've got a life, and I that's important to me. There are things that I want to do and that I'm going to keep doing, because if I'm forced to stop doing them, it's going to make me unhappy.
Doesn't end well.
It just doesn't end well. And I structured that into the way that I bought into the company, into the size of my shareholding in the company. And so I put all of that up front. And so now, it's Thursday. I think it's Thursday. Yep. It's Thursday. Normally I would be working, but I'm not. I'm down here in Mooloolaba, in Kondong, recording a podcast, and I've got no qualms about that.
Yeah.
Right. So I sort of created the space.
Yeah.
And now
I
don't take the piss.
Yeah.
But I don't apologise.
Yeah, fully. And it's interesting because it's one of the things that's been popping up a bit over the last couple of months is talking to people. And like I mentioned before, we're doing this program in Melbourne called Making Space, and we're asking the question of like, what do you want to make space for? And so many people are like, I have no idea. Because that reality has not been presented to me. The idea of space for myself is so foreign.
Yeah.
And already the gift of just like put some thought into it and just what's a
just throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks.
But even before that, like the step before that of even getting an idea of what to throw at the wall is like, can I give myself permission to have 2 hours of nothing and see what drops in? A lot of people are a hard no to that. From a comfortability point of view, I couldn't. Like the kids, the husband, the job, the family, all the stuff of doing for others, but to forge out an hour or two for yourself is a challenge for a lot of people, especially when it's not doing. If it's just being, like what does it look like to sit down for an hour and sit on your back deck, or like I feel better when I'm achieving things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a doer. I'm not very good at sitting still. I'm just contrasting that to spending an afternoon lying on my bed scrolling social media, but that's a different kind of doing. It's a sort of an avoidant doing, I think, in a way. It's not. I mean, what I did, and this was prompted by someone I was close to at the time, is I wrote a list, and I dumped into that list. It was kind of a life wishes and dreams kind of list,
bit bucket listy,
bit of a bucket listy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I did it actually on a plane trip. I was flying back from a holiday in New Zealand with the kids, and so I was just typing it into my phone, and that was a really interesting exercise. That's where the motorbike thing popped back up.
Yeah, right.
Actually, and I think the framing around that idea is important. It's not a to-do list. It's not. Like I think bucket list has a bit of an outcome sense to it. It's like these are the things I need to do before I die so that I can die happy.
Yeah.
It's more like, what are some of the things that have just caught my interest?
Yeah.
Or what are some things that I've started that I'd like to take further? Or
what excites me? What brings me joy?
What excites me? Yeah. What brings me joy? So that was a fun exercise, and I revisit that list, and actually, like, not very often, but I think the last time I went back to it, I looked, oh shit, yeah, did that. Oh wow, yeah, I did that too. So that was, that's a way that you can easily fill an hour. That's still doing. You're still getting that little activity buzz. It's not, but I'm not very good at just sitting down and looking at the horizon.
But I even think that the whole list thing, like, a lot of my stuff I look through, whether it's for me or for other people, is like through the frame of worthiness, like, and validation. That they're big themes that roll around.
And help me understand how a worthiness and validation frame fits there.
Well, often people do things for other people, whether it's work, family, partners. There's a unconscious benefit to the role they play, whether it's
Sure.
people pleasing, whether it's I feel like I'm loved when I'm doing things for you, like all like legit, like you know. And then I find it interesting. I actually see it as an expression of self-love or self-trust, or when you can do something for yourself. And even if it was sitting down for an hour and writing a fucking list of what brings you joy or what potentially could or what would make you smile if you did it. No. That's an expression of, oh, I'm worth it. I can spend time on myself and invest time on myself and not have to invest all my time into other people to make me feel good.
And there's absolutely. It's almost like a sort of a radical selfishness in a way. I mean, there's a trade-off here, right? Because, you know, if I was married and paying off a mortgage and I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old,
yeah,
carving out space.
There's shit to do.
There's shit to do. You know, carving out space to, you know, bugger off for 2 weeks on a motorcycle would be a pretty radical act. So you. There's the reality of context.
Yeah,
there.
it's dependent on
it's dependent on context. But you know, actually, interesting. I discovered this immediately post my separation. Right, so the kids were about 12 and 11 and 13, something like that. And so my ex-wife and I went to a shared 50-50 thing. And what I found was that the space, and I'm not advocating breaking up families for this by any means, but what I found was that we didn't literally do week on, week off. It was a bit more subtle than that, but having time all to myself and my life, and then time when I was full-time dad. I had more to bring as a parent when the kids were with me because I wasn't, looking at my watch or thinking, grr, because I'd had this other space in my life where I could pursue what was important to me. Now, I have to believe that's possible to create within the context of an ongoing relationship and co-parenting and all that sort of stuff. But that was my experience. And it was really stark to me that I was able to be more present with my kids when I'd had that space.
The cup was fuller.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And again, not advocating to separate for that, but my experience of separation was the same. It was that my biggest fear was losing the connection with my son.
Yep, me too.
And what happened is it just increased it exponentially. And I think there's a lot of what you're talking about of being able to be alone for the first time in that week on, week off scenario. Like, oh, what do I want? What do I need? How do I want to eat? What's my movement look like? Like just the little thing, the basics.
Yeah.
What practices do I have? What do I not have? How much scrolling do I want to do? Like, I got the opportunity to step out of the dynamic of the family and work out how to honor the bits that I needed to show up for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's possible. I know that's possible in relationship because I have clients and friends that do it all the time.
Mm.
And I think we might have even mentioned this in the last podcast around like this balance between honoring self and honoring other. And it doesn't need to be heavily outweighed, but I think if we can have the goal of like, can we get closer to spending more time to honor ourselves as equal to honoring other?
Mm.
Like that might seem like a lot for someone because it's probably 90-10 at the moment. It might be 95-5 of 5% self, 95% other, depending on circumstances. But it's like, can we just level the scales a little bit on what does moving to 20% me look like? Does that mean I asked for some things that I wouldn't have previously asked for in regards to, I just need time to do this. I'm going to sit in my car and scroll before I walk into the house, like whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it has so many different faces.
Yeah.
But I think the theme under it is like, what do I need? And can I give myself permission to explore what I need and to try it on and to throw it against the wall and to, we talked about motorbike riding, but it could just be like, I just need to read a fucking book.
It could be I need to start a podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's just interesting.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I had a thought and it's gone. It's all right. It'll come back. Yeah.
But you mentioned before around like, how does this link to validation and worthiness and all the rest of it?
That's it. Because it's also a bit scary because you're asking yourself the question, well, who am I and what's important to me when I'm not just running around,
when I'm not
laying the train tracks in front of
mum, dad, brother,
colleague,
son,
employer.
Yep.
Worker.
When I'm not all those hats.
When I'm not all of those things, who am I when it's just me? And yeah.
Fucking so many people struggle with that question.
Yeah, of course. And I think there's a strong narrative. I mean, I think we see this in some of the destructive patterns of traditional gender roles about men as provider and women as kind of carer sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Look at, sort of mental health impacts of, men becoming unemployed and losing that provider role.
Yeah.
Look at, sort of the empty nest kind of syndrome, when the kids no longer need you all the time. Yeah. That sort of thing. So I think these themes kind of pop up at some of those really critical kind of major life event times as well. I think there's an industry, a little sub-industry, retirement coaching.
Yeah.
And there's a lot's been written about that as well. That hard stop from full-time work to home all the time, super, super jarring.
Yeah.
Because, if you've got predisposition, there's the pokies, there's booze, there's all sorts of destructive ways of filling that time.
And I think with this, it's like it sounds nice in theory, but it's pretty hard to implement when we've been conditioned in the roles to be so entrenched in them. It can feel hard to be like, I don't know what's going on when I'm not all those things. So I think if we can pour in a bit of a dose of grace and kindness, be like, give yourself permission to not know, and let's not loop that into a shame spiral. It's okay. It makes complete fucking sense. You don't know because you've been nailing all those other roles.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you are all those other roles and that's how it's going to be forever. There's an evolution, and
Yeah.
And I think if that can be done with a little bit of kindness
to yourself.
Yeah. In regards to, oh fuck, I've lost myself so much, I don't even know who I am. Partially true, but also you've just been focused on doing a good job for the bits of life that were needed, And obviously there's borders and murkiness there, but
yeah. And I think another thing that can play there is if you're used to being good at stuff, you got to give yourself the freedom to suck a little bit.
I'm smiling.
you gotta like, and I relate to this. I talked before. I like acquiring new skills, and when I'm putting cables away, I wrap them the way that the professionals wrap them, and I did a barista course partly because I just want to make the best coffee I can at home. So I relate to this. I like to do everything. I have this expression, sort of, what do I say, like competent amateur. I like to do everything to at least competent amateur level, right? Yeah. Home handyman stuff, DIY, whatever. But when you start something new, by definition, you suck at it, and you've got to be willing to suck for a while.
And if you've been amazing at other parts of your life,
right,
that is not a great feeling.
Right. So maybe that's a takeaway. It's like maybe we should do something every day that we suck at. Because if you're not. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's the step before that is like, can I be comfortable being a bit shit?
Yep.
Being a bit shit at this.
Yep.
And having the white belt on, and then progressing to the whatever the next one is, brown, I think.
Yeah.
Blue.
Yeah.
Green.
Yeah. And there's a nice little loop across to vulnerability there as well. One of the things I said to my co-founders before I joined the business is, guys, I haven't been tech hands-on tools for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I'd been doing, tech adjacent, obviously, but I hadn't been, down in the trenches for 10 years.
Yeah.
I hadn't worked extensively in the technologies that the company was about. I hadn't worked extensively on the software tools and languages. And it's like, I'm going to suck for a little while.
But you own that up front.
Right.
And
And
there's freedom in that.
there is.
Yeah.
There is. And I look back now, I've been doing this for 6 months. I was doing some, fun, deep, intricate tech stuff the other day. And it's like, how far those skills have come in 6 months. It's not like I've gone from, computing to classical guitar, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all still adjacent. I'm building on a big base, but
Yeah.
And I was just looking, it's like, yeah, nice one. I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got your brown belt pretty quickly after having some
What
history.
order do they go? White, brown, blue, something like that? I got to blue belt in Taekwondo years ago.
But it's interesting the amount of people have a fear of change, and a lot of the thing that's under the fear of change is, I don't want other people to see that I suck at something.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of that. And that's why I think these, carving out space for yourself,
Yeah.
that needs to be something, I think, this feels reasonable, it needs to be something that you can suck at.
Yeah.
Right? No one wants to get a new job and suck at the job because there's people looking at you and you get paid, and that's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I understand why that is limiting in terms of sort of career and professional choices.
Yeah.
But study, right? Of course you're going to suck when you start because you don't know it. That's what you're there for.
Yeah. It's that permission for that beginner's mind.
Yeah. Yeah, beginner's mind, that's a strong one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like me not really giving a shit that I've got the tech guy coming down and my internet's not working and my technology didn't work.
Yeah, and we fixed it.
We fixed it.
Yeah.
I accept that I'm shit at that.
Right. And look, if we hadn't got it working and we just sat around and had a chat and I went home, that'd be fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah. I don't know how we're going for time, and I don't know if there's a sort of a theme you want to try and wrap around to, but there's something that's just this little tiny thing, and it's obvious when I say it, but I've just been noticing a bit in myself and actually in others about starting new things without necessarily a goal in mind, but just because maybe it's just a notion that you dropped in the busyness of life or whatever.
Yep. For example, your motorbike.
Motorbike riding, a good friend of mine decided a year and a half ago he wanted to learn how to play the piano. Not for any instrumental purpose. Oh, there's a pun. But, which is... So with the motorbikes, I just showed up.
Yeah.
Did the training course. I was nervous as hell. Remember the first time doing like 30 k's an hour on the little, kiddie track. Where it's like, oh my God, this feels so fast, And then first time on the road, and then first time at 100 k's an hour. It's just like, So I just showed up and didn't really have a goal in mind other than just get licensed. And then I think I stumbled on moto camping, which is just strapping a bunch of camping gear to the back of your bike and off you go.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that could be interesting. And, I didn't have a bike that was it's not one of these kind of things you see with the aluminium boxes and the ones that people go hardcore adventuring on. I was like, oh, yeah, well, there's a little rack on the back of my bike. And so I bought this cheap duffel bag motorbike thing off, eBay or something, Amazon, and I went motor camping.
Crack, yeah.
And I had a crack.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I spent a night in a deserted campground outside of Glen Innes. Had the place to myself. It was beautiful, little river and fire and all that sort of stuff. Tackled some roads that, some gravel roads, which was new, and I just sort of took it slow. I was like, yeah, okay, I can do this. And I just had a crack.
Yeah.
And, I went once or twice more, and then this trip over Christmas to New Zealand, like that came together at the last minute because I was sitting at home thinking, well, work's going to be shut down. I don't want to just sit around doing nothing or just working, Brisbane heat, humidity. So let's go somewhere. So my first idea, I saw something on a sort of a food cooking stream that I see occasionally. It's like about laksa in Malaysia. I was like, yeah, all right, I'm going to go to Malaysia and have a real laksa. And then I was like, yeah, that'll do, why not? The flights were reasonable. And I started looking at that. I was like, I wonder if I could ride a motorbike in Malaysia. And it all just got a bit complex and expensive, and it was going to be a long trip. So then I pulled up this app that I've got where you can just click on a city and it just shows all of the outbound air routes from that city.
Yeah, right.
So, if I'm here, where can I go in one hop?
Yeah.
So I just clicked on Brisbane. So where could I go? One flight from Brisbane, so I don't have to change and all that sort of stuff. And there was a flight to Christchurch in New Zealand, and I checked the price. It's like, oh, that's pretty cheap. And then I Googled Christchurch motorbike rental. Oh no, then I Googled, New Zealand motorcycle riding. Yeah. And, it's just like beautiful, 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 stunning, da-da-da-da. Bike rental. Yep, it's bike rental. It's reasonable. Yeah, all right, I'm going to New Zealand. I'm going to motor camp for 10 days. And so I just did. And it was amazing. It was one of the best trips I've ever done.
Yeah.
But, back to my point, I didn't have a purpose.
That wasn't the intention.
That wasn't the intention. That wasn't the intention. It was just like, I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah.
So, and this good friend of mine with the piano, he started out just learning the piano, and then he's got interested in sort of a little bit of composition, and then he's, that naturally leads to kind of a bit of recording kind of stuff, and now he's kind of collaborating with people he's met through in social kind of music sort of groups, and so the whole, like, everything is like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You think, oh, motorcycling, that's a thing. Oh, no, that's not a thing. That's a universe of things. And music is a universe of things.
Yeah.
And you can, if you're in that sort of beginner's mind, that playful freedom to explore kind of state of mind, and you've carved out that space, or you've got that space, you can just be sort of curiosity and play led. And you never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is like not being attached to the outcome allows the flow and the freedom and the...
Right.
Oh, I didn't expect that. You get surprised by the universe.
Right. Right. It's that outcome attachment is huge.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful little loop back to, because it's all about motorbikes. I'm becoming that guy. There's a beautiful little loop back to that, though. Something I realised, I was talking to one of our GTB colleagues at the residential, actually the last day. Motorbike riding for me is completely journey oriented, not destination. Right? So it's all about what's the experience going to be like during the journey, and where I end up is really secondary. And that, for example, drove my decision to drive this morning instead of ride. Because if I ride, I would have gone the nice, pretty back way. That's 2.5 hours instead of 1.5. And, and I for various reasons, like, no, I'm just going to drive this because it's a totally different experience. But yeah, it's about, and I think most motorcycle riders who, beyond those who are using it for commuting, it genuinely does just become about, well, what's the experience like on your way somewhere?
Yeah. And then that sounds like it's got some real parallels to how you approach different parts of your life. I'm just thinking about like study. Like that's not outcome based. It's like I'm here for the present moment and what I'm getting in the present. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
First year's done, I'm just going to show up the second year on the first day and see what happens.
Right. And I think I talked about this last time. Most uncharacteristically for me, I dropped my personal expectations about academic achievement in that course, and I just did a good enough job to not be ashamed of the work that I was submitting and to pass, and that's kind of what I did. So I was getting sort of solid 70-75% sort of grades for all of the work, or as Janelle, my partner, puts it, that's a distinction. It's still 25% wrong. I know she's going to listen to this. That's pretty funny.
Hi, Janelle.
Yeah. Hi, Janelle. That was, again, dropping an expectation about an outcome.
Identity. The old you used to work in acting.
Right. Having to kind of optimize and excel at all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It was great. It was quite freeing to just
that's the thing,
bash an
isn't it?
assignment out, make it a little bit better, ask ChatGPT for some critique, tweak a few things, and just hand it in and be happy with doing okay.
Because what I'm thinking about is like the little cages that we build around ourselves based on expectation or obligation or what we think we should do or what we think we want others to think about us. And what happens when we like bash some of those bars down? It's just like, I don't know where this is going to go, but let's just find out.
Yeah.
Rather than I fucking have to get to there.
Yeah.
And everything that's involved with I have to get to there or I should.
Yeah. Or I need to present in a certain way or these things are, beyond what are reasonable obligations and ties to the people around us. These are the things that are expected of me. Yeah.
I wrote a welcome. I wrote a welcome to 2025 email to my little newsletter.
Yeah.
And I sat on it for about a week and it was just welcome to your weird, kooky and imperfect, welcoming your weird, kooky and imperfect self to 2025.
Yeah.
Because that's what it really feels like. I think for me, all of this comes back to, can we accept all of us? And all the imperfections, my crazy little bits of kookiness, the hills I want to die on, can I welcome them in and go, this is fucking me, people.
This is me.
This is what you get.
Yeah.
And I'm here for that because it's the opposite of what we've been talking around with, like, I have these identities, I have to do this, there's got to be that outcome. It's like, this is me. And it doesn't mean you have to throw your hands in the air and not try.
Absolutely not.
No.
It frees you up to try, I feel.
Definitely. So I feel like that's a bit of my theme this year. I think the study and the podcast from last year has kind of solidified that, of just like, it's so important for me personally to accept me as I am. And I've noticed that the triggers are decreasing because I can love on my shittiness as well as my good bits.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, I can see you sort of smiling and glowing as you say that.
It's relieving.
It's a relief.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
relief.
like, oh, fuck.
It's like, I can be a finicky bastard sometimes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
What do you reckon?
Finicky bastard.
Yep.
What's something you're excited about this year?
Oh, gee. Kind of everything. Got some motorbike trips planned. Janelle and I are doing a week in Tassie in March. We're speculating about something else somewhere else in kind of May, June. Work is super interesting and exciting. All sorts of exciting things happen there, and just such a good vibe in the company and with the co-founders. You know, we know the bits that we're good at. We know the bits we're not so good at. Collaborating, like it's just a joy, honestly. Just being in that kind of small, dynamic, agile stage with people that I respect and we just relate. So that's great, you know. And sometimes I'm down in the technical weeds, and other times I'm big picture concept. So that's great, you know. Like I wake up every morning and it's like, yeah, I better have some breakfast before I start working. And it has been decades since I felt like that.
Yeah, right.
So that's
very cool to notice.
Such a nice place to be. You know, the kids are just growing and getting more competent. You know, my youngest is on his learners and he'll be going for his license as soon as he can, you know, and he's just see him getting better, and you know, I just see them kind of growing and maturing and developing a bit of independence and a bit of sort of identity, seeing myself getting better at accepting those identities, even though they're not always strictly aligned with mine. You know, getting over the mini-me syndrome, I think, as a parent is a thing.
Differentiation part of it.
The differentiation, right, and being okay with that and celebrating that. What else am I excited about? Looking forward to going back to GTB. A little bit apprehensive. It's going to be interesting as we move into the therapist-y kind of role. So, you know, I'm sure you and I will end up on opposite sides of the CTO chair this year. That'll be fun.
Just do it like this.
Yeah, we'll just do it like this. That's true. Yeah. I'm just kind of
different part of the question.
Okay.
What are you not excited about for this year?
As in, what am I averse to about this year?
I've never asked that before. I just thought about it then.
I have completely disengaged from American politics, so I just can't look.
Yep.
And I can't do anything about it.
Yep.
What else? Nothing comes to mind.
Cool.
But I'm in a very fortunate position where, you know, I've chosen my work, I've chosen my life.
Yep.
You know? So who knows what's going to get thrown at me, but I'd like to believe...
What surprises the universe will dish up?
Yeah, that's right. But I'd like to believe that I'll handle that stuff better than I might have in the past.
Yep.
I certainly handle the little micro irritations, you know, that my luggage rack broke on the way back from the motor camping trip last weekend. And okay, well, I guess I better sort something out. You know, we sorted it out, kept going. So I feel like I'm better at that stuff.
Yeah.
In the past, I would have, shit, this is fucked. What are we going to do? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So I'd like to believe that when inevitably life throws me a wobbly, I'd like to believe I'll be in a better position to handle it. But yeah, no, there's nothing I'm really averse to this year. What about you? What are you excited about?
I'm excited about learning to use my new Argentinian barbecue.
Oh my God, you people should see this thing. I'm so jealous. You need to post a picture of it.
We bought this house and there's a couple of things in here that we would not have spent the money on, but we are very happy that the previous owner did. And the wood-fired Argentinian barbecue is one of them.
It's amazing.
So the little boy that just wants to start a fire, he's going to be...
Well, I told you we're going to come and camp in your backyard by the river, and then we can fight each other. And Janelle, actually, she's a fire queen too. We'll fight each other for stick poking in the fire rights. Yeah, nice. Okay.
So well, I think this weekend there's a little wood-fired pizza oven in the barbie, so we're gonna get that cranking. And I'm just like the simplicity of that sort of stuff. There's been a lot of hustling, so
you've kind of earned a bit of rest,
just to be like, let's just make a fire and cut the grass and, you know, sit on the deck and watch the sunset. Yeah, nice. So I think what I'm saying is I'm more excited about just being rather than doing. Yeah, nice. And there's still a lot of being happening this year. It's pretty full. But I'm as excited just about the being.
Nice. Yeah, that's an interesting way of coming at it. I was coming more from a doing perspective, but I like that idea. But what is it about the being? Yeah. Might get pretty fucking bored, but who says, you know? Well, you know, with the right mindset, boredom can be a really fertile space for creativity. Yeah. No, I'm pretty good with boredom. Yeah, right. Any aversions, any things that you're feeling avoidant about this year? You've just buried a couple of avoidant topics, right? You know, the whole house flood payout and all that sort of stuff. They
so
were probably
that housing chapter, that feels good to. We were talking about, we did a bit of an end of year kind of over a few drinks at New Year's, like review and, looking forward, looking back kind of thing. And we're just glad that housing stress will not be a stress this year. Like obviously we've got to pay the mortgage, but looking for a house, all of that stuff, that I'm just happy that will not be the core stress this year.
Yeah.
So, happy that that's not there. And probably the other side of that is being able to apply some consistent energy into looking after myself from a health point of view. Like that was just the stuff that got thrown to the side.
Yep.
So, just bought myself a little home gym that arrived soon and put that up under the house and get back to some old, used to have a gym. So,
so watch this space. It'll be ripped Rick in no time. Shredded.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been ripped. Maybe once or twice in the CrossFit days, but I'll just be happy to be able to fit into me size 30 shorts again. The bar's a little bit lower these days.
Stop flexing, man.
No, I have an unofficial goal. I want to be in pretty good nick when I turn 50.
Yeah, right. When's that?
It's not for another 2 and a bit years.
Oh, you're a youngster.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So 48 in April. So I'll just chip away at that.
Yep.
And again, that's like, that got pushed away to make sure everything else was sorted. So it's that whole thing of self and other.
It's crazy how quickly fitness develops with repetition. Just crazy. I started running last year a couple of times a week, and I went from like 35 minutes, 5K to 25 minutes in a couple of months, not by doing anything other than just doing it.
Yeah. I know my body can do it.
Yeah, you can do it. It's really nice discovering what your body can do.
Having the space and the time and the intent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's me, man.
Well, I'm looking forward to being a part of it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun year.
Yeah.
Thank you for battling the storms and for MacGyvering the shit out of the tech today.
A pleasure. I'm pretty pleased with myself about that, actually.
Yeah. Tick. And we will see you for round 3 at some stage.
At some stage, if you love me back.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, mate. And hey, before you head off, I just wanted to say thanks for listening to that conversation. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate if you followed the podcast on Spotify, left a review, or even just left a comment and let me know what you got from the podcast. Those little bits of interaction mean a lot. We're not doing any promo or ads, or we're not selling anything on this podcast. So the goal is just to get these conversations into more people's ears. So if you've got a spare 30 seconds, really appreciate those little steps that help this grow. Okay, we'll see you in the next one.